Hello and welcome to the Our Prenup Lawyer podcast, where you and I get to learn more about prenups as I interview professionals from the fields of family law, couples counseling, and wealth management. I'm your host, Libby Garabedian. Let's get started. The information provided in this podcast is prepared by Our Prenup Lawyer for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. The information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. This is not legal advice or a substitute for obtaining legal advice from an attorney. A person listening or watching should not rely upon it in any manner without engaging professional counsel. The podcast is intended to communicate general information and, because recorded, may not be current. On this episode of Our Prenup Lawyer, I'm joined by Cassandra Koenig. Cassandra is an attorney and the founder of Aloha Divorce, a San Diego-based law firm that applies the Hawaiian concept of aloha, love, peace, mutual respect, to its family law practice. With a background in psychology and economics, she blends emotional intelligence with legal expertise to focus on amicable divorce, prenuptial agreements, mediation, and co-parenting solutions. Licensed in California since 2020, she's a certified co-parenting specialist and mediator who emphasizes collaborative, respectful transitions rather than adversarial litigation. Her own upbringing in a low-income family and experiences with family disruption inspired her dedication to helping clients create stability for themselves and their children. In founding Aloha Divorce, she aimed to provide a modern alternative to conventional high-conflict divorce practices, one where clients can say goodbye to their past and hello to a new chapter with dignity and clarity. Hello, Cassandra. Thank you for being on the episode today.
Hello, Libby. Thank you for having me.
Of course, let's jump right in. And I want to know about your background in psychology and economics and how you got into family law.
Sure. My background in psychology and economics began in Buffalo, New York. I went to a SUNY school there, and during college, I worked at a bank. So that kind of tied in the economics part, and psychology I just always innately find incredibly interesting. It's just a passion. Even, leisurely books I read, I look for kind of psychological books and Psychology Today magazines. It's just fascinating to me.
So how was that transition into family law, bringing those skills to inform your practice?
It's actually the two most important skills. So whether I'm doing a prenup or divorce, we're dividing assets and debts and, playing with numbers. And then the psychology part is the emotions behind both processes. Like for prenups, there's a finesse to presenting the prenup to the other partner, and the psychology component of sometimes, oh, that person must not trust me, or that person's already expecting to get divorced, and being able to coach clients through that kind of, psychology is very rewarding, and I'm grateful for my background to have that skill set.
Understanding how, obviously, human nature and how people will react when presented with certain things.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I love the name of your firm, Aloha Divorce. How does that reflect the approach you take to family law?
Well, the definition of aloha was hello and goodbye and love. So the concept, whether it's the divorce, like you were saying earlier, it's hello to the new chapter, goodbye to the past, and doing it amicably. With Aloha Divorce being the prenup aspect, it's saying goodbye to divorce and hello to the new chapter. So it works out on both ends.
So what, aside from divorce, prenuptial agreements, collaborative law, can you tell us a little bit more about the services that are offered at your firm?
Sure. So parenting plans, I'm very passionate about. I became a co-parenting specialist when I was pregnant with my first child, and that was about 4 or 5 years, about 4 years ago. And being able to mediate with that skill of having both the parties, making sure that they stay in line and keeping it child-centered and keeping the child, first and foremost. Sometimes I'll even ask them to bring in a picture of the child and have it on the desk. So it kind of reminds them we're here, not to fight each other, but just to find the best solution and to figure out together what's the best interest of the children.
So, how does mediation or collaborative law compare to the divorce process? Obviously, it's very different. It's not supposed to be adversarial, but how does the timeline and the mindset differ?
Okay, so I like to think of them as three different buckets. So you have the traditional divorce, which is, filing and then the initial pleadings, exchanging financial disclosures, and sometimes requesting orders if one person isn't playing nicely and going to court and fighting over it and getting the judge to say, yep, you win. This is the scenario, and making those orders for you and kind of that's the more lengthy process because you're more contested and it's kind of unpredictable where it would go. The next step, next bucket, I should say, would be the collaborative. Not a lot of people know what collaborative practice is. It is relatively new. I love the concept because it's going through the divorce process, but what makes it different is both parties have to have attorneys, and also they all sign an agreement in the very beginning that they will not litigate. They will resolve everything. And if they do decide to litigate, that the attorneys are dropping out and they're on their own. They have to start over from scratch. So it incentivizes them to find a solution and to work together. And then another thing about collaborative practice, a lot of times you get what I call it the dream team, where during these meetings together, where each person has their attorney, they'll bring in a financial advisor. So that financial advisor, while we're playing with numbers, can give their insight and help strategize for the parties and kind of figure out the best interest, or having a tax accountant person there in the meeting. So we get that knowledge all at once. So we don't have to go back and forth and emails. We're all doing everything together on the same page. It's much more efficient. And I will say it is a little bit more expensive because you have to pay, the attorneys, the specialists, and all that. So it is a little bit more expensive, but if you have the means to do it, it's definitely worthwhile because you're cutting a lot of corners and saving a lot of time by not, going back and forth and sharing information. You're all there. Another person who commonly joins these collaborative meetings are like family law, a co-parenting specialist, or therapists. So if someone's having a hard time kind of regulating their emotions, getting heightened, it's nice to have a therapist there and help navigate those. So that's the collaborative bucket. Think of, we all agree not to litigate, but you both have to have your own attorneys and you can bring in the dream team. So that's collaborative. And then the third one, which is mediation, is different. So the mediator, sometimes they're not even attorneys. Sometimes they're just, they used to be therapists and now they became trained as mediators. You don't have to be an attorney to be a mediator. The whole purpose of the mediator is to help facilitate the movement. And if there's any disagreement, to help mediate those issues. So that's how I like to think of it. And it's a third party neutral. They can't give legal advice. They can just give general basic California law knowledge if they know it and they're licensed. And so that's that person. And then during the mediation sessions, sometimes both parties will have lawyers, sometimes only one, sometimes there'll be no lawyers, and that's up to the parties. So that's the difference between the three kind of buckets: the traditional divorce, the collaborative, and the mediation. Did I explain that okay? Or is
Yes, no, that was great. And I want to talk about co-parenting because obviously, if there's children involved in any of these processes, that's needed. So you're a certified co-parenting specialist and mediator. So what do you do in that role?
So the co-parenting specialist, what it helps me the most is coming up with a very detailed parenting plan together. So sometimes people aren't married; they just have a child together and they're co-parents. But maybe they're not together romantically; they live in separate houses. So maybe they only knew each other for a month, and then one of them got pregnant, and now they have to raise a child together. So there's all different types of co-parenting. It's not just the divorce. Having to raise a kid in two separate homes now. It's a lot of different type of scenarios would play into co-parenting, and having the parenting plan is so beautiful because it makes the parents sit down together and agree on things before these issues happen. So it saves a lot of heartache and headaches down the road because you already agreed on how you want to raise a child. You agree how, if you were to date someone new, like what are the parameters? Like, should you wait how long? A year before you're introducing the child, or like a month, or whatever the parties are comfortable with, because a lot of times people don't think of these conversations and aren't planning ahead until, it happens. And then you're like, wait, what did you do? And someone's upset because they never talked about it. So being able to communicate about these issues ahead of time relieves a lot of stress down the road, and it saves a lot of time and energy and miscommunication that may end up backfiring. So they are so crucial in every type of relationship when there's children involved.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it, because obviously I don't think, the average person is really thinking about it. Like you mentioned, where if they date someone, what is the timeline to introducing them to their child? How does the other co-parent feel about that? Those are all things that you do need a professional for to help guide you.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of make you think and together come up with a decision on your own and what's best for your family.
Yeah. Now, in divorce, what is the best way to keep children at the center of it? So there's no he said, she said, there's no alienating of one parent, but so that the child or children understand that both parents do care about their best interests and care about each other.
I think that the tool that works best for that is that parenting plan, because that parenting plan is all about the child and what's the best interest, and who's going to decide religious issues if there's that, or who's going to decide what sports they're going to play. And while we're creating that parenting plan, every question on it has to do with the child. It's always what's in the best interest of that child. For every little question, it's just what's going to make the child the most, happy, healthiest he can be given the circumstances. And I think it's so important.
So how long does a parent coordinator typically, or excuse me, co-parent specialist typically work with clients? Does it extend after the separation or plan is finalized, or is it only for a certain period?
Well, typically it's that we'll make a plan together and we'll have that. But things change, things happen. Now it doesn't apply to that certain age group. Now we have a teenager who's, we don't have that toddler anymore. So we're not dealing with those issues. Now we're dealing with, what if the teenager all of a sudden gets caught smoking pot? We didn't think about that before. So then they'll come back and revise it and kind of come up with a new agreement. So it could be a lifetime. It could be, just one and done. It's really up to the parents and their needs. And yeah, it varies. It does vary.
Yeah, so just anticipating what they can in the moment, but then there's some need for revision occasionally.
Yeah.
So I want to pivot and talk about high conflict divorces. Is it possible to mediate those or take a more collaborative approach? Or do you find that, litigation is usually how it plays out?
So with high collaborative, one of the reasons I appreciate my name of my firm is Aloha Divorce is typically when people are angry and they're mad, one cheated and they want to key his car, they're not going to call Aloha Divorce. They're going to call another firm. Like there's a firm I refer out to all the time called Antonio Miranda. And for example, their coffee mugs that they give out have brass knuckles on them. Their business cards are like razor blades. So if I sense a high conflict and I can see it come in where that's what they want, I know that I'm not going to be able to give the client what they're wanting out of me. So I'll have that consultation with them, and I'll assess whether or not, I'm a good fit. And a lot of times I'm not. It's so I don't want to leave them high and dry, not know where to go. I always make sure I try to find the perfect match for their needs. So I end up referring those out majority of the time. So I don't really see much of those. But again, I'll always find someone that I find would be the best match.
Yeah, that's great that you're able to have those connections and support people in that way by giving them those referrals. But what advice would you give to individuals who are going to be going through divorce or experiencing marital problems and how they can find the best attorney for them?
Sure. Well, one of the things when I get that initial call, that I'll ask them is whether or not they've tried couples therapy. And a
Okay.
lot of times they say no, or I haven't even thought about it. I just thought we needed a divorce. So I'm not in the business of promoting divorce, really. I'm here when you need me. But I try to see if there's any hope at all. So, of course, I don't require them to do it, but at least I suggest it, put it in, back burner in case they didn't want, because, divorce can be ugly, and it's going to be harder majority of the time, even if it is a collaborative style, especially when there's kids involved and, navigating. So I'd like to see the parents at least try to work it out ahead of time. And then if it's, they did and it's just not working, they say, okay, let's find that next step and let's try to navigate these waters the best we can and try to be the best parents and exes we can be. Yeah.
With individuals who sometimes need to take a second look at their marriage and see if, divorce or separation is really what they want. Have you ever had a client decide mid-separation that they want to give their marriage another try?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that does happen sometimes. Because, it's emotional, the relationship, there's romance, there's passion, and you never know. It's just, there's a lot of feelings. That's why it's so important that I feel it's very important for family law attorneys to be networking with therapists and people who specialize in different kind of psychological issues, because sometimes it's a cheating issue or a trust issue. Sometimes it's anger. And having someone that you can refer to that specializes in that particular issue that can help that individual, I think it's so crucial to have those cards to be able to help your clients work through those feelings and navigate those waters. Because I'm sure you hear a lot how clients treat family law attorneys like therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid to give advice because it might be horrible. It might make it worse for you. I can't give that advice. And plus you're getting charged hourly for these attorney rates where maybe your health insurance would cover just a therapy session. So I try to be mindful of that and making sure I have as many tools and resources as possible for the clients.
Yeah, that's a great perspective you have, because obviously you wear a lot of hats, but you can't wear all of them at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I want to talk about prenups and the Aloha philosophy that you bring to them. Often there's this myth that, it's disruptive to the marriage, or that one side is trying to protect their assets and not thinking about the other. What's the reality of the situation here?
It is. It's the innate feeling. And one time, well, when I was getting married, and I always knew I needed a prenup, and my husband, who's not an attorney, presented to me first. I was like, wait, I'm the one supposed to be presenting. So even though I do prenups all the time, I had that innate feeling that, you can't control. And I'm so grateful that I had that experience because it allows me to relate more with clients and going through those feelings that, wait, why are you presenting it to me? And I've learned there's a finesse to it, and you want to talk to your partner ahead of time and see how they feel about the concept of a prenup at all. And, talk to them first before you hire an attorney and then just, show up at the front door with a prenup. You don't want to ever do that. You definitely want to talk to your partner, and it really should be a collaborative approach, even though each, obviously should have their own attorneys to review and make sure that they understand what they're signing. But having a teamwork approach I think sets the foundation of the marriage. And I've seen it's happened before where they're going through the prenup process and then they end up calling off the wedding because they were fighting too much. And I think I'm almost glad that they broke up because it saves that fight down the road. You're getting those true colors ahead of time instead of wasting years and getting married and changing your name and having kids and then, sticking it as long as you can. Now you're 10 years deep in the marriage when you shouldn't have been married in the first place because, the personalities clash. So I find the prenup process not necessarily romantic, but it strengthens the relationships. It makes them work through the numbers. You can talk about your goals and what you want in the future and get on the same page, see how you can support each other in those goals. So I think it definitely helps the relationship. And one interesting thing is right now the divorce rates are going down, but prenups are going up. And I'm
Okay.
not going to study yet, but I do have a inkling that going through that prenup process and working all those out ahead of time is helping those divorce rates drop and getting a better picture and making sure you communicate.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it does provide couples the opportunity to have those difficult conversations and see where there might be some misalignment.
Clear.
Yeah. So obviously, each party needs to be represented in the drafting process, but can the enforceability of a prenup or postnup be affected if one partner doesn't have counsel?
Yes. So although legally it's not required, there's no law saying that you must both have attorneys to do a prenup. What it does say is when you are waiving spousal support, and if you're altering, I would even say altering it, even though it's the law just says waiving. If you're waiving spousal support, that person needs to have an attorney. It's required. If they didn't have an attorney, that it's void. Hopefully whoever drafted the agreement has, a clause saying just void that part. The rest will stand except that the spousal support part. But regardless, it's so crucial to have an attorney to understand exactly what you're signing because it's all this like legalese language. It's complicated. So like might as well be in Latin sometimes. And sometimes like, yeah, I'll just sign whatever. No, you need to have it, put in layman's terms, know what you're talking about. And that's where that 7-day rule comes into play, which I've heard you talk about on your other podcast of the 7-day rule is once you have a final agreement, both parties have to sit with that final agreement for 7 days before they can sign it. And the whole purpose of that is just making sure you're not being hot-headed and just, signing, you're really sitting with that prenup for a whole week, just thinking about like, okay, is this what I really want? Does it reflect? Do I need to make any changes? It makes sure you have the time to change anything, know what you're signing, and kind of cool off before you sign it. So you're not feeling rushed or, forced to hurry up and sign, before you get married and it's presenting the day before. So it's such a beautiful rule and I hope it never changes.
No, you're right. Yeah, it gives people the opportunity to really to sleep on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what advice would you give to an engaged couple that's considering whether they should get a prenup?
Well, I think every single person should have a prenup. And it's funny, I always hear from, just being out in public, just either colleagues, friends, or anyone. I hear it's like, oh, we don't have a prenup because we didn't have any money at the time. There's nothing to put in there. And it drives me crazy when I hear that. It was like, no, the whole purpose is what about the future? You're not going to be broke forever. When sure, you're only 21 now or 18 now. You're not going to eventually you're going to maybe have a business or, have a high earning job. And how do you want that treated down the road? It's really planning for the future together. And divorce is it can be so expensive. So the less money you have, the more important having that prenup is because it's going to save all those litigation fees, all the discovery time that you're spending pulling up these financial documents because it's already laid out, it's already agreed upon. It makes the divorce process so much quicker, so much more efficient, and so much cheaper. So the less you have, the more important it is to put a prenup, I would argue.
No, I like that perspective because I think people, they do, like you said, get into the mindset where, oh, a prenup isn't for me because I don't have a high net worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, from all the ugly divorces you've seen, but also the successful marriages, what advice would you give couples on how to have a successful marriage?
And communication is the most important. I've noticed the causes of divorce is about usually financial issues or communicating about financial issues. That is the reason. And again, I'll circle back again with that prenup. You're communicating about finances together. You're already on that page. You're doing that, and I think that stems into that divorce rate dropping. So yeah, communication is key. And if it's you're finding it hard to communicate, you should do couples therapy to help you with communication and help navigate what works for your personal style, your personality, and how to, again, be able to talk to each other and be respectful of each other's feelings and time. So communication is the utmost importance.
Of course, of course. Now, if listeners are interested in connecting, what's the best way to reach you?
You can do by email, Cassandra at aloha-divorce.com. Email's probably the best. So you can call my office, but I feel like email's the best way.
That's great. Well, that will be included in the show notes so people can reach you through that. And thank you so much for being on the episode today.
Thank you, Livia. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
That's our show, folks. Thank you for listening to Our Prenup Lawyer. Make sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment below. Follow us on Instagram at Our Prenup Lawyer, and listen to us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and watch us on YouTube. See you guys next time.